Hi, everybody. It's Monday. Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me on the panel today, Derek Frisbee from DF Sports. Derek is been chastised by Baltimore Ravens fans, and
we are going to war, baby.
Yeah. We got Bronca, the injured reserve, but there's nothing to stop. Hey, there's nothing that can possibly stop Bronc.
That's right.
That's right. Again. That's what I'm going to say when you get injured now, Bronc. Again.
That's what everybody around me says.
Yeah, God. Stay away from me. Don't even get in my air. Don't get in my space. And Correct. Double P, Peter, the Mr. Double Penetration Man. How you doing, Peter?
Jeez.
Well, I mean, you call yourself Double P, and it's like, and it's going to be like... gaping asshole.
Wow, that's early for an S rape reference.
It is. I said gaping. I said not
even a minute into gaping. The program.
Yeah, that's right. Then there's vaping, but you don't want a vaping asshole. At any rate.
Oh my God.
Not at all. All right. Today's program starts on a rather sober note. And it's an article that was on NBC online. I don't really understand why people print some of the things that they print, but in this instance, it's an article just about how the whole Baker Mayfield and Brown situation has evolved, what it's evolved into, with the glorious headline, Brown should just cut Baker Mayfield and be done with it. And it's really an opportunity. It's really through profootballtalk.nbcsports.com. And it's really taking a few cheap shots at DePodesta, which doesn't really bother me, to be very honest with you. But it misses the point, all right? And I think back in 2018, which is more than 3 years ago, my marriage basically came to an end, and it would have been very easy to come to a fast resolution that didn't serve anybody, but that was fueled by anger. And there is a right way of getting a divorce, and there's a wrong way of getting a divorce. The wrong way is the one where you have to get a bunch of attorneys involved and get both parties stoked up, and so everyone ends up angry. And then there's cooler heads prevail, where both sides work on a reasonable basis. You cannot point to the Browns-Baker Mayfield divorce, if you will, without coming to the conclusion that neither party is being particularly helpful in this. And to single out the organization or to single out Baker Mayfield doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the Browns did what they did. The fact that Baker Mayfield felt injured by what they did and then seized on this alleged quote about him, needing to grow up, and then really putting things out on public media, as far as social media. Both parties are working against the best interest of themselves. And this is unfortunately how divorces end up 90% of the time. I'm glad to say mine hasn't ended that way, because I won't let that occur. I think there are fair things, and in a fair world, both people have to give up something in order to achieve something in the end. In the case of Baker Mayfield is set to make $18.86 million in the fifth year of his contract with the Browns. That's guaranteed. And either a team pays it, a team pays a portion of it, or the Browns pay all of it. All right. If the Browns pay $18.86 million in its entirety to Baker Mayfield, they are contractualized to do whatever they want to do with him. Now, that may not be the best, most expedient thing for Baker Mayfield, who I'm sure wants to get on the field and play for somebody else. But the bottom line is that nobody in the NFL is stepping up and offering anything reasonable or anything at all for Baker Mayfield. And they're wanting the Browns to pick up the vast majority of that $18.86 million contract final year. He is an asset. And I hate to say this about people, but in a business sense, Baker Mayfield is a paid-for asset. And if the Browns pay him, I'm sure that's not the conclusion the Browns would want, would be to sit him or have him sit out and make $18.86 million. And I'm sure it's not to the liking of Baker Mayfield that he is going to have to go through another draft cycle where teams are going after probably a much better group of college quarterbacks that were in this year's crop. But neither side seems to be doing whatever is best to get this done. And there is just as much, if not more, animosity, which is what happens when divorces are handled this way. The animosity just gets worse and worse and worse. So before, Pro Football Talk and, NBC gets off on a tangent here, and the cheap shots that are taken at DePodesta is, the quote was, is Mayfield done with the Browns? And and the quote back from Cleveland is, not if he wants his $18.8 million this year. And that came from Jimmy Haslam / or chief strategy officer, then in parentheses, who is yet to craft many effective strategies in Cleveland.
Wow.
Then it says, but that's the kind of short-sighted, misguided thinking that results in the Browns getting caught up in factors other than having a winning team. So this is a slanted article.
That doesn't even logically follow. That comment doesn't even make sense.
No, it's just somebody wanting to take a cheap shot at DePodesta and Jimmy Haslam. And look, I understand. The success has not been there for this ownership. Let's be honest about it. But in a situation like this, the Browns didn't help the situation by saying he's our guy for 2022. And Baker Mayfield didn't help the situation by going on social media and immediately writing some letter to the fans of Cleveland. And the thing has really snowballed since then. And maybe Baker thought that he was playing with a better hand, but there are some poker hands where nobody at the table really has what they need. You could bluff somebody out, but in a situation like this, there's no bluffing. Baker is going to get $18.86 million, whether he plays or not. He's going to get it in some combined form or individual form. That's it. And he's not going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. That's it. He's likely to have a year off. That's it, as far as he's concerned. As far as the Browns are concerned, well, you made a head-first lunge into getting Deshaun Watson, and the bottom line is that you're going to pay a price for what you did. And that price is $18.86 billion, because you lost all your leverage to be able to trade this player. So these two entities are inextricably, for the wrong reasons, joined at the hip. And there's frustration on both sides. But what I'm going to be talking about during the course of the show, it'll make people understand the situation that the Cleveland Browns are in. I can't tell you what the situation is with Baker Mayfield, because obviously, if he were perceived as the savior and the answer for a team, they would have jumped on it by now. Believe me, because look, the Steelers are ready to get Pickett as their next guy, and they were willing to go with the 20 pick on a team that is lost Ben Roethlisberger, but has other issues on the offensive line, all kinds of issues. And now they got three quarterbacks, any one of which could potentially play at any given moment. And we know that that's not a recipe for success in the NFL. So if Baker were worth a plug nickel to anybody, they would have teams would step up because teams are stepping up and paying people inordinate amounts of money.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Well,
So-
this might be a Captain Obvious comment, and I suppose it actually is. But to paraphrase Paul Simon, there are 50 ways to dump Baker, and what's going to happen is that sometime in August or September, during the preseason or the first 2 weeks of the season, some big name quarterback is going to go down, and he's going to be dead for the rest of the year, and then Baker's value will suddenly start going up when that happens. And I think that sort of ghoulish scenario is what the Browns front office is hoping for, that some team is desperate enough to take on Baker because their star quarterback, let's say somebody like Dak Prescott or Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that, finally gets crippled for good, and they need to get Baker in because there isn't anybody else, that can start their team.
And another thing on top of that, the Browns, like you said, Bronk, they're not necessarily in a position to where they have to move off of him right away. So I completely agree with you, because if I'm not mistaken, they don't have to pay $1 of that $18 million until week 1 of the NFL season.
Yeah.
So technically, they could just wait this out, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think the funny thing about this article is that it says the Browns think that the sunk cost could be partially or maybe even completely recovered if a trade opportunity that currently doesn't exist materializes at some point between now and the start of the season, or perhaps even the trade deadline. But that hinges on a chain of events that likely won't happen. First,
That's
the team needs.
bullshit.
Yeah, I know. You and me, we've witnessed it over and over again. First, the team needs to lose its current starter. Like that, like that doesn't happen in the NFL.
Yeah.
It happens every fucking week.
Second, that team needs to opt for an approach other than next man up. Well, I mean, if your next man up is Mason Rudolph, or if your next man up is, God only knows,
Geno Smith.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Gilbert Gottfried.
Sam Darnold.
That'd be interesting.
Well,
He's dead, man.
he's
Very
dead, man.
He's very dead.
Oh, hello, Tony.
Oh, good afternoon.
Hi, Tony.
What are we chatting about? I'm a little late, and I've been out of the loop today.
What we're talking about right now is there was an article on NBC, basically, and to make it quick and short and dirty and clean, they're really whizzing on DePodesta and Haslam and the Browns and explaining why a trade for Baker couldn't possibly be accomplished. And their logic is that in order for a trade to happen, a team would have to lose its starting quarterback during the course of the season. Second, that the team would need to opt for an approach other than next man up. And we were just conveying the thought that if the next man up was Geno Smith, I think most teams would consider it Baker Mayfield. And then third, the Browns need to be the ones to get the deal done for Mayfield before the 49ers can for Jimmy Garoppolo. So they're throwing Garoppolo into the mix like this is some kind of a great competition. All right.
Yeah. I mean, who's hurt more, Baker or Garoppolo? They both have injuries.
Garoppolo
Hit me
just got
because
his
it's on
surgery.
his throwing arm.
Yeah, I mean, right now Garoppolo is more of a risk because his throwing arm is the one that was being worked on. So,
I mean, there's a lot of scenarios. I mean, I wouldn't even talk about the 49ers until you know what's going to happen with Deebo Samuel. And I mean, if they get rid of Deebo, I mean, and they lose Jimmy Garoppolo, it's like, well, fuck it, let's just give Trey Lance a chance,
right.
You know what I mean?
Now,
The whole problem with the Baker thing is you need it to be one of the top 15 teams in the league, because the bottom 15 teams, with how deep the draft is next year in quarterback, are going to say, why would we give up the draft capital? Fuck it. Let's just tank for, one of the top quarterbacks.
I think the Browns just want relief from the 18.86, and I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But, they're saying if Baker were to ultimately cry uncle and give up part of his guaranteed salary, let's stop the conversation there Baker Mayfield has no
He's not-
reason to give back
Yeah.
anything.
There's nothing.
He had something taken away from him. So let's be fair about this. Or if Mayfield says or does something to justify cutting him for reasons other than skill, injury, or the cap, the Browns could emerge with a victory. Well, that's not going to happen either, because it's bad enough what they've already done to him. If they try some sneaky side doorway of trying to get out of that 18.86, that's really going to blow up in their face.
Which the only scenario, and this is the only reason why I'm saying it, the only way that they could get that to work would be if they told him, hey, you got to come to training camp, because that would mean he would be fined daily, which I think we can all agree. I'd be shocked if he showed up. So if he doesn't, then I guess technically they could say contract detrimental or whatever. But that, like you said, that would even be dirty, because they don't want him there.
That's right. I mean, this is going to be resolved one way or the other. They say the current mood is that Baker and his team, when I say his team, his group of people who are representing him, believe that the Browns deliberately tried to make him look bad in a primetime game at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this.
It's a bit of a stretch.
It's a ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody at that point in time was trying to make him look bad. I think Baker's ego that he couldn't overcome the injury that he had haunts him, and that he did look bad at a primetime game at Pittsburgh. He looked bad after the injury, and it got steadily worse.
Yeah,
and I don't see why why should he have to explain that,
I just see something doesn't sit right with me with how the Browns approach that injury. I'm not saying that they intentionally tried to make him look bad, but that was we all know it. He should have had surgery, and he played, and it was all really for nothing.
The surgery, as it turns out, is something that will heal, and he'll be in a position to play. He may have to wait longer. I don't believe that he should have to take a cut. I think that the Browns would be smart if there was something that came up due to an injury to another team's quarterback during the course before the season, like in preseason or whatever, that if they could just get somebody to pick up half the tab, that's fine. But where I'm going with this has more to do with the Browns in the draft that has left me shaking my head than anything else. The Browns don't have the kind of money to sustain what they are currently doing. They're giving away guaranteed contracts of $230 million, re-signing Ward, and paying huge money, $20 million for Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And, and they still have an incomplete wide receiver room because on draft day, they passed on Mechie, which we'll get to in a minute, because at 44, that's who they traded, and that's who Houston took.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, and what's interesting about it is this will be another one of these things that people will look at after the fact. And of course, 2020 hindsight is always great, but when our team had an opportunity to make a decision, they decided to trade down instead of get Mechie. All right.
Yeah.
And the Texans, who don't really have a quarterback, I don't consider David Mills the starting quarterback in the NFL. They were willing to go get the wide receiver. Now, I wouldn't trust either of these organizations with the decisions they've made in the past.
Correct.
But to be honest with y'all, we're going to see what Mechie can do. And there are those who feel that he was a first-round talent. There are other people who are not so sure.
Well, it's about the injury. I think if he didn't have that major injury, to me, he's a bottom first-round pick. So I think it's a steal if you don't factor that in, which obviously injuries factor in, but we'll see. I mean, he was very, very talented at Alabama, and I got a friend who does all the numbers, and I know, analytics are analytics, but in his numbers, one of the things that he said were John Mechie being there, as well as I totally forgot his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Jameson
Those two
Williams.
were solely responsible for all of the production at Alabama with
Right.
Bryce Young.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Oh, I think I kind of agree with the Browns process because to me, David Bell and John Mechie are kind of the same guy. Good route runners. They don't win with top end speed, but they have good like acceleration and burst, and both reliable hands. The only difference was obviously Bell didn't really have the injury concerns that Mechie had since his injury was super late. And with Bell, obviously the 40 time was bad, but to me, they're kind of the same player. And I
And
think they
Mechie
got
didn't get to run.
yeah.
But in my mind, if I'm the Cleveland Browns and I'm in a situation where it's really looking more and more like they're going to have to eat a big chunk or all of the $18.86 million on this thing because they made a fast move. When you make fast decisions, you pay for making fast decision. We landed the player, all right, which is great. But let's be honest about next year. Next year, I can almost guarantee you that with the publicity that's involved, and now the people who are suing in a civil suit, Deshaun Watson, are trying to force him to do depositions this month. And this is all to interfere with his football activity. And everything is going to be a pressure point on Deshaun Watson. And that's the way civil suits work. And it's then the NFL will end up meting out their justice. It is my belief that if the Browns get 8 games this year out of Deshaun Watson, they will be fortunate.
Yeah, I think he's gone for the whole year. It's just
I mean, and it's easy to guess what the NFL is going to do, but I think it's pretty safe to say that half the season is going to be blown out. And realistically, your wide receiver room doesn't really matter that much when Jacoby Brissett is trying to spread the ball around to them.
Oh God.
They will not be in the playoffs. They will not be close to the playoffs. And they will have made a $230 million guaranteed contract for somebody, knowing full well that he had problems as far as legalities were concerned. And that could easily cost them the entire next season on the basis of what their final record would be. And it would, and how players would grow with a second or third string, if Mullins is still there, a quarterback throwing to them. I don't know how the team molds in that circumstance and in that situation. That's the position the Browns have put themselves in. All right. That's not Baker Mayfield, but that's part of the decision that the Browns made. So my feeling is that all of this, we're going to trade down, and we're not re-signing Jarvis Landry. We're not going after any other names. We're not doing anything. We're publicly saying, oh, we're really happy with our wide receiver room.
Yeah.
They just don't have no fucking money, folks. Not for this.
And there's not
Go ahead.
Go ahead. There's not a ton of options out there either. I mean, when you're looking at guys who you can bring in, you want to bring in an old Julio? Not really. I mean, Will Fuller, sure, but still, he's had his injury problems. Deshaun Jackson's a guy that's been talked about.
He's on the verge of retiring.
Yeah, but we're talking about guys who aren't going to really have a ton of impact.
And sadly, I saw a report earlier. I'm sorry I forgot the guy's name, but apparently the Browns are also out of the Will Fuller thing now too, because apparently the Browns like their receiving core after the draft.
Well, the problem if you're the Browns is you have to keep some salary cap space open because if Watson's not suspended for the full season, his contract is guaranteed, which makes the Baker pill a tough pill to swallow if nobody trades for him.
And there's a, not to cut in, but the Austin Hooper money comes back into your pocket June 1st. That was a June 1st delegation. So there is that coming, but yes, Tony, it would be a little bit different.
So again, my feeling for the Browns is if you're looking at the wide receivers that are left, if you passed on Mechie, if you gave up your pick to trade down and you moved out of number 44, I'm not thinking that they chose wide receivers. They clearly saw that there is still a lack of talent in that room, but they did not. They wanted to get more bulk quantity than quality.
Do you think they traded down just to save the round 2 money?
I think that there is a lot of things that are at play here, but I think that this is a finite thing. Money is a finite thing. And I'm not saying how much money Jimmy Haslam has. It's not an Art Modell kind of thing. But there's a finite limit and length that people and business people are willing to go to either get a deal done or not get a deal done.
I think go ahead.
And I think the Cleveland Browns have a damn good idea that the NFL is going to mete out a serious enough punishment that next year they're not going to be in the playoffs and they're not going to be near the playoffs. And I think that this whole thing will be a roll up to get Deshaun Watson and whoever the full room of wide receivers are the season after this coming one. I honestly believe that. And that whatever the Browns can accomplish this year, that's great. They always have an excuse. If the NFL says he's not going to play for 12 games, then, it's like Jacoby Brissett's not going to do any better with the Browns than he did with the Colts. That we understand that. Okay. So don't get mad because you got your guy coming and everything's going to start moving again the following year. Unfortunately, we waste a year of Chubb and the last year of Kareem Hunt.
And I think, along those lines also, my opinion, and I agree with you, Bronk, I do think money is a factor for sure. But I think Tony's guy there in Minnesota, Kwesi, I think he stole our pick. I think I think Andrew Berry had his eye on Andrew Booth because if you'll notice in Kwesi's press conference, he said, hey, I've been watching this guy since my Cleveland days. And then we went on to trade back and take a corner anyway. So, I mean, maybe it's just me trying to put 2 and 2 together here. But to me, it just seems like, hey, Booth went off the board. And we kind of said, oh, crap. Now what? And then we traded down. I think that's another scenario, at least in my opinion.
I want to add real quick another thing too. Just have to remember that also the Browns didn't really have any picks 4 through 6, so they also wanted to trade down to get more players that they wanted, like Cade York, who they thought we saw the special team run in the 4th round. They thought he might have been gone, so they just wanted to get more picks to get more guys to fill out the roster a little bit more.
Well, and in keeping with that, and you bring up a good point, Peter, is that what they got in return wasn't designed to do ultimate stuff this year, this coming season. I mean, Cade York is fine. You got a guy who's a kicker, and you need a kicker, and he'll be a kicker for you this coming season and the year after, and that's not a problem. And it's a way to get some more points on the board. But you get guys like Perion Winfrey and people who are developmental players who you're hoping will become more, and them getting a year of in and out action, of getting snaps at a professional level will make them stronger players for the following year. I don't think that the Browns draft was designed to necessarily do anything to make this team better. I think that it was designed to get a running back in place, perhaps with the guy from Cincinnati,
Jerome Ford,
in line because Kareem will be gone after next season. I think that everything points in everything I've looked at, not to this coming year, but to the year after. And I think money is part of it. And I think the strategy of trading down had to do with the fact that they already know. I mean, we're going to get the news and we're going to go, oh, that isn't fair. I think the Cleveland Browns pretty well know what the NFL is going to hammer Deshaun Watson with. I believe that. And it may be a little worse than what they think. It may be a little better than what they think. But I think that they know that this coming season, there ain't going to be much for him to do. I believe that. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Jacoby Brissett thing, they played it up as being, well, he has the mobility part of the game that the Sean Watson has. They're not even similar. There's no similarity between these players whatsoever. They're both African American and they both have some escapability, but please don't go there. Don't go there with me.
You could say Dobbs has more similarity to Watson than Brissett.
Right. And, I'd say that what it is what it is. Brissett is going to give you what limited stuff he can give you. It's going to be a short dink and dunk offense. It doesn't matter what receivers he has. This is the way he plays. He's a low risk guy. And that Stefanski will just say, that's great. Don't turn the ball over. And we got ourselves a guy who can punt, Boherquez, who can punt the hell out of the ball. And we got a guy who can kick long field goals. We'll try to squeeze out points, try to do the best we can. And we've strengthened our defensive secondary. And, we're still going to try to make a play for Clowney, but that seems to be kind of sitting in limbo. We're going to give it the best shot we got.
Did you see the report that came out yesterday, I want to say?
No.
There was a report that came out that said essentially what we've been hearing, they've been in talks. The more it goes on, the more likely the Browns are. And within the next 2 weeks, they're expecting it to be done. So
now, the only way that they're going to be competitive next season, if Deshaun Watson isn't there, is for their defense to step up. Okay,
yeah.
We can all agree on that.
Correct.
So I think that's kind of where we're at, and I think Jarvis Landry is moving on. And the interesting part of this is that the Ravens are making noise about this. Now, I know that Derek, you're sick of hearing about Ravens fans. Derek was in a space, in a confined space with a bunch of Ravens fans.
World War III in the AFC North, I tell you.
Were they talking about Landry?
No, they just wanted to continue and say how terrible their offense is and how Lamar Jackson's a way better thrower than everybody imagines and how Greg Roman sucks. And so I don't know. I mean, if you want my opinion, to be honest, I think Landry is a good player. But like we've talked about many times, at his age, with his injuries, it's how reliable can he be anymore? I mean, he's still a good player, but, is he going to be on the field?
It's my interpretation of the Ravens draft, which everybody gave an A+ to. They did nothing for WTF Lamar Jackson, who is stuck what the fuck tweeting after every pick, because it was doing nothing to help him and to help the offense out. That's going to put more pressure on him. He may get the ball more often with a great defense, but it didn't do anything to give him. It took a weapon away, and it didn't give him anything in return, really. I think that the way the Ravens look at this is, again, like everybody's looking at Jarvis Landry. If he falls into our lap at $4 to $5 million, ... and that's the way they look at it. And they love to have things fall into their lap, and they'll use that as the guy that will give him another additional sure-handed guy along with Andrews to continue using him in this pedestrian offense that they run, and to get first downs and let him use his mobility and get himself injured before he can make his big contract. This is what Harbaugh does for a living. He doesn't care about airing it out. He did exactly in the draft what he always does. Just like the Browns ignoring wide receiver, these guys do the same thing all the time, and they find themselves good linebackers lower down in the draft, and they have things fall into their lap, and they're going to build up that secondary, with the safety that they picked up in the first round at 14. That is what they do.
Correct. I mean, they have things fall in their lap more often than Urban Meyer, but
Oh, God.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. But I have a serious comment here. I think we're going to find out what the NFL has in mind for the Cleveland Browns on Thursday when they finally release the schedule and see what sort of primetime games, what sort of national games the Browns are given, because they're not going to put us on fucking Thursday night football, or they're not going to put us on Sunday night football or Monday night football if we're playing Dobbs or
Brissett.
Jacoby.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. So if we look at the schedule, and it comes out we're playing 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 4:05, 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 1 p.m., 4:05, 1 p.m. That's what's going to happen.
It'll be interesting. Oh,
well,
sorry,
they can
Rob.
shift
Yeah,
games,
go ahead.
can't they? Can't they shift games?
I think starting a certain week.
Obviously, and I think there's a bidding war between certain networks that they, CBS has so many rights to the top game, and
Amazon's in now too.
Amazon and Yahoo and MySpace and all those other fuckers.
It'll be
LinkedIn. I'm waiting for LinkedIn to start showing some football games. Go ahead.
Napster, Napster will get in there.
What'll be interesting to me is and along your point there, Bronk, like you said, if the entire season's all 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. games, then you kind of know. But what I'm going to be looking at is, the number we've kind of heard allegedly is between 6 to 8 games. I'm looking at those first 8 games and kind of getting a sense, okay, what are they thinking? That to me is going to be real interesting, like you said. Because they know. I mean, the NFL, this is all a business. They're going to want to make money the best they can. And if Deshaun's playing, of course they're going to want it in prime time because, controversy brings viewers. It puts eyes on your product.
Creates cash, my friend.
It is all cash.
I think the Browns should have multiple Monday night games, especially now that the Bengals are everybody's darling because they made the Super Bowl. That'll make the Battle of Ohio with Don Criqui.
Give me the Ravens week 1 in prime time. I want to smash these. Oh, I hate the Ravens right now.
Well, I know it won't be week 2 because I think week 2 is a double header at the same time, which the NFL's fucking going on their mind. You see that Monday Night Football week 2 is going to be 2 games played at once.
We didn't get any international games this year too, and I was thinking like if the Browns were going to pop over to Frankfurt or Mexico City or London,
well, that's kind of weird because the last time the Browns were overseas, it was
the Vikings.
The Vikings, right?
I was there. And the week
I remember
prior
falling asleep during the first quarter and missing
the Futility Bowl.
But it was even worse than that because the week prior was the week that Joe Thomas injured himself and then retired from football. So I never got to see Joe Thomas play live. I was thinking all during that time I'm gonna finally see Joe Thomas, and that's right when he got hurt.
Just maybe if you tell that story to Joe Thomas, he'll fly across the pond and sign your cast.
Well, he doesn't have to do that. If I was one of Jimmy Valvano's kids or something, or who are Jerry Lewis's kids, then maybe he'd do that. But
we'll sign a one-day deal with the Jags and play one snap for you.
Yeah, play a snap for me.
I wanted to step in and say something that disturbed me today. People who my dog is snouting me with his nose. I love it when he does that. He's like, hey, pet me. I have to multitask right now.
You gotta put him on camera. Come on.
I can't hoist him because he's the size of a holiday roast, man. I'm not doing that. He's about 28 and a half pounds, this guy.
Can the chair hold all that weight up there?
Oh, thank you. If it's holding me up, I think 28 and a half more won't hurt.
I know. I'm just messing.
Hey, you think I don't buy extra heavy duty chairs I mean,
After the incident during the post-game show,
exactly right.
I'd pour concrete on your floor and put the chair in if I were you after that.
This has casters on it, but a rug underneath me. You see, I'm set up, and this is made for wide load. But what bothered me today, people know that Dick Vitale lives he lives in the area that I live in. He doesn't live with me. It's not like in the morning, hey, what's on the breakfast menu? It isn't like that.
Who used all the hot water, baby?
You gotta chlorinate that pool. Yeah, no, it's not like that. But the health problems that Dick Vitale has gone through are significant ones.
Sure. And
this headline, Dick Vitale to be honored with the Jimmy V Award at the 2022 ESPYs. Has anybody lived? Robin Roberts still lives. Didn't she get it?
Oh God, I think that's like the kiss.
I think she got it.
Of death.
Yeah, didn't Stuart Scott die like 3 days after getting it?
See, this is what worries me.
That is like the black cow of death. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
The black cow of death.
It's like, I don't want that award. I shouldn't be laughing about this, but the fact of the matter is that more often than not, I mean, they herded Pat Summitt head up there. This is
nobody's heard from her since. She's probably
no, she's dead. She's quite dead.
Oh, she's dead.
She's dead. And the problem there is that people say that they really want to shine the light on Alzheimer's disease, and believe me, what I went through with my mom, I certainly know that it isn't pretty. But they only followed her while she was still compos mentis, okay? But when it all went to hell, I preferred what they did with Glenn Campbell, where he would forget whether he had just sung a song or not, but he was still out there doing what he loved. Once she got her award, once she did a couple of interviews, they put her away, and you never heard, saw, or anything from her. And the thing that bothers me about Dick is that we know that he had chemotherapy treatment for lymphoma, and which is and he also has what are called precancerous dysplasia on his vocal cords. That's why he had to rest his voice. And he in April he announced that he's cancer free, but we know when you're dealing with lymphoma that is spread throughout parts of the body, that there are so many chemo treatments that you can get. And when the cancer figures out the chemo agents that are being used, your time is limited. Now, you can buy yourself years. This is not to say that death is at, Dick Vitale's door, which is bigger than your door, baby.
He's 82. You can die of all sorts of things when you're 82 as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, like getting this award might push some people over the edge, right? But the fact that he is cancer free today, let's hope that he remains cancer free for a protracted long period of time. But when I saw the headline, I was not real thrilled with that. Here's another headline that I can't figure out to save my soul. The New York Times, they run Wordle.
Is that the New York Football Times or the New York Baseball Times?
Does anybody here play Wordle?
No,
and I hate seeing all of it on Twitter. I don't care.
7,000 renditions of it now.
Yeah, I know. And I'd rather play Jenga and watch things fall down. I mean, quite honestly, I could care less about Wordle. But the New York Times runs Wordle, okay? And they dropped the word fetus as a Wordle solution to keep the game distinct from the news. Now, can you believe this shit? Can you fucking believe that that's a real honest to God word? Fetus. That's a word. I don't care what your belief on abortion is. Fetus. I don't care how you define fetus. It's a word.
Wow.
Can we stop this?
And that ended up being news?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's right. I mean,
That
that's
ended up
really
being a news item.
But this is the way people want it. This is the way people want it. Right now, they're taking away a woman's right to have abortions all over the country. And the New York Times is going to drop the word fetus. We're going to turn our head the other way and just pretend that this whole fucking thing isn't a problem. It doesn't present a problem. And we're going to blame the word. Or the wordle.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't even know what Wordle is. What is Wordle?
That's some stupid word game. You gotta guess the word in 6 tries or some stupid bullshit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, they can't even agree on what a fetus is, I guess. I don't know what the problem is, but it makes me fucking sick. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, the best made plans of mice and men must surely go awry. Whenever a fighter is setting up the big payday fight and takes the interim fight, there's always that risk that something could go wrong to ruin it. Enter Canelo Alvarez. Now, the fact is, he's planning on a third fight with Gennady Golovkin. They've already had 2 fights that have been very unsatisfying, both kind of went Alvarez's way, and Golovkin wants his revenge. So in the interim, Canelo fought at 175 pounds against a guy named Bivol, who is for the Soviet Union. And I've seen Bivol fight. He was 19-0 with 11 knockouts, 18-0 with 11 knockouts going into the fight. And he's a technician. Like a lot of
That's
Russian
his real
fighters.
Name? Bilvo?
Bivol is his last name.
Oh, Bivol.
Bivol.
That sounds like an 80s punk band.
Yeah.
Devo.
Devo.
His name is Dmitry Bivol. All right. So, yeah, that's a good first Russian name, Dmitry.
Quality.
So he gets, so the last time that Alvarez fought at 175, he knocked the guy out. So he figured, I'm going to clear the table and clear my way through everybody. And he proceeds to fight a guy who has never fought below 173 pounds in his life. And the guy is a full-fledged guy, not a real big power hitter. But the thing that was amazing is that Canelo Alvarez, who looked like Tyrannosaurus Rex standing next to him because of an arm length reach discrepancy where he has short arms, landed only 85 punches in the entire fight. That's a 12-round championship fight, folks. That means that he landed 7 punches a round.
Yeah.
Couldn't hit him. Guy was right in front of him, too. And Canelo couldn't hit him. They made the scores 115 113 to look good, but Bivol won the fight. All right. And that was it. And now they're saying, hey, well, we want to see the Golovkin Alvarez 3 anyway. Well, of course you do, because it's not your fucking brains getting scrambled. But when you have a performance where you can't pull the trigger, and now granted, Golovkin is more Canelo's size, but Canelo's had a lot of fights, and he's only lost twice, and in 61 fights. But this is the time, that things start going south. Alvarez started out as a 140-pounder. Right. And he has moved up, and I don't know how natural that is. But the fact of the matter is that he could not move Bivol. He could not hurt him at any time in the fight. He got outpunched, outlanded 2-1, and it wasn't even a competitive fight. According to all the people I talked to who saw the fight, I don't pay for this shit anymore. He got his clock cleaned. He was just outclassed. So, again, sometimes going for the big money, you got to pay attention what's in front of you. And what I can tell you is this. What Muhammad Ali once said is, and what Joe Louis, they both said the same thing. And that's that The difference between being an older fighter and being a younger fighter is that you have more bad days when you're an older fighter. And if that bad day comes on fight night,
Ugh.
yeah, you got a real problem on your hands. When you're young, you're always up for it. You got all your reflexes, but when Joe Louis lost his title, and this is before everybody's time, and lost his title, he couldn't pull the trigger against Ezra Charles. And that was his comeback fight. Then he ended up getting knocked out by Rocky Marciano in a fight he had no business being in. I mean, but he said he saw the opening, but he couldn't fire. When Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman, a lot of people thought, well, he's kind of shop worn, but he had it that night, and Foreman couldn't figure it out. But it would later come back that that Ali would get beaten by Leon Spinks, and clearly the signs of early Parkinson's syndrome was starting to set in. But the bottom line is that Ali had more sluggish fights after the third Frazier fight.
Correct.
And that these things wear fighters down. And if you look at Ali having trouble with Ernie Shavers, a guy he wouldn't have had a problem with just a few years prior to that, by 1976-77, it was too many off nights.
Yeah.
And I fear that for Canelo, this might be the first of a few off nights that might take him to the end of his career. Hope that's not the case.
I got a cultural question for you guys in the panel in the chat. You started off that whole segment with the plans of mice and men often go awry. Any idea who wrote that? Well,
that's interesting because
I know the answer, by the way.
Well, William Faulkner wrote Of Mice and Men, and that's where the quote. But that isn't that's the inspiration of that work. But it seems to me that existed prior.
It did, yes.
Tell me.
Robert Burns, the Scottish poet who did Old Lang Syne and many, 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 many other things. The Bard of Scotland, Robbie Burns.
Wow, how about that? You learned something.
You guys learned something today.
Absolutely, and that's something I will forget. No. It is.
Well, in case you're ever on Jeopardy or something.
That'll be the thing that comes up, right?
You'll be all set.
I stopped watching Jeopardy. Isn't it terrible?
I can't get it. I haven't seen it for years. But Hammer went through the process on it. He nearly was on the show. If you want to give it, tell the story about it. But yeah, he went through the auditions, I believe.
Once Trebek died, it's kind of
Well, that's just it. Watching Trebek die was not real thrilling.
Yeah, did he get the Jimmy Valvano Award too at the same time?
Yeah, but they were already doing stuff like that for him.
Yeah, they were doing all that.
Yeah, and then poor Hammer, he would have been hammered by the transgender champion on there, who was on for I don't know how many consecutive 45 or whatever consecutive victories.
Wow.
So he was applying at the wrong time, I think.
Hammer knows trivia like probably no one I know. So
maybe he'd be the champion, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. So at any rate, this is really what I had for today. And one other thing, I think that this is so typical of Life Goes On. This is what I call the obla-di, obla-da moment.
What happened to Derek? Where'd he go? He disappeared.
He said he had to take off around 6:50 today.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
I'm just glad the police didn't come in and take him away, like has happened before to people on Moohead Radio.
Yeah, we've had more than our share of interesting demises met by co-hosts.
Yeah. Like the drummers on a Spinal Tap,
Just blowing up, spontaneous combustion. Life goes on in the NBA. If I had to sit here every year, it seems, and say, the Sacramento Kings are hiring a new coach,
Oh,
Yeah, and now it's Mike Brown, former Cavaliers coach. All right.
he's still alive.
Hooray!
But how can you report this with a straight face? I'll read this. The Sacramento Kings have agreed with the Golden State Warriors assistant Mike Brown on a 4-year contract to become the franchise's next coach for a year and a half. Sources told ESPN. I mean, if you're, what do you do if you're on that carousel? Mike Brown is never going to go anywhere. And if he does, it's going to be to that dysfunctional organization that nobody could succeed at. Wasn't Alvin Gentry the guy they just fired?
Yeah.
It's like the former head coach black man carousel that the NBA has going. It's like, well, you have no chance of succeeding, but we'll be able to put you down as a head coach. So we'll be able to use it on our diversity report, and you'll be getting head coach money guaranteed for 4 years. All right. You'll only be there for a year and a half, and you'll be back being an assistant somewhere else, but you'll get the 4 years worth of money, and that's your choice.
Wasn't Luke Walton a coach there too at one point?
Who?
Luke Walton.
Luke Walton.
Yeah, Luke Walton was. Yeah, he was. I mean,
Jeez.
I think really you could just pretty well point to a phone book and they have had some involvement in Sacramento, that organization. I mean, it's fucked up there. It's seriously fucked up.
I mean, if they had Byron Scott yet, that's
No, that's true. That's true. There's always one more. Ain't that it?
what's he doing nowadays? You don't hear about him.
You don't hear about him at all.
I think
No.
he's coaching in the WNBA.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
This
that
was
would be
kind of old, but did you hear about the Lakers and their head coaching search?
Oh, that Stotts?
That Phil Jackson, he's involved in looking for a coach now.
What do you mean he's involved? He can't get out of his chair. How could he be looking for anything? Give me a break.
You tell me.
It's like Phil
I saw
Jackson's
that. I was just
wisdom.
like, oh wow.
I mean, they got to bring that name back from the past. I mean, come on. I mean, well, as long as their ownership continues the way that it is, nothing has worked since she got into that chair. And look, it's not being
Sadly.
sexist, folks. I feel the same way about Jimmy Haslam. Okay. So, but some people just have losing histories, and and the Bust family, Jeannie would be the biggest loser.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
she's sort of like Marge Schott of the NBA, isn't she?
exactly. And then there's the final thing about the NBA. The 76ers are getting more confident as the series goes on, according to James Harden. Now, talking about Much Ado About Nothing, that was Shakespeare, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a
I just wanted to make
title of a play.
I just wanted to make sure, yeah. The trade between the 76ers and the Nets that really amounted to Much Ado About Nothing. You have an old James Harden who looks like when he's dribbling the ball, a pigeon could shit on his shoulder. And then on the other hand, you have Ben Simmons who's like, I just realized I've got to have back surgery. And it's like, so we got to keep the story of somehow this Philadelphia 76ers process, which is the most painful process I've ever seen in my life. This has got to be more painful than having a Coke bottle removed from your rectum. That is not the kind of process that I would want for an organization. No. But, they've even the series with Miami at 2-2. But you just get the feeling that poor Johannes Embiid, who did not receive the player of the year, the most valuable player, Jokic did again for the second straight year. And Embiid's like, what more do I have to do? And it's like, we see, it's kind of like this. You have to win. And Embiid says, well, how am I supposed to do that with the people around me? It's like, that's your problem. He's playing with a mask now. He looks like the fucking Undertaker out there. I mean, he's got this mask on his face because he's had an orbital fracture. And unbelievable. just the whole thing is just fucking unbelievable. So yeah, we'll see if he can win. It's too late though to get the MVP. But if they do get further into this whole thing, maybe he'll win the MVP next year. Who in the hell knows? But that's what I have to tell you today.
So to spare me any disappointment for not getting NBA League Pass, who is going to win the title this year in the NBA?
Oh, do I care? I mean,
anybody got an opinion? I mean,
Phoenix Suns. I'd like to see the Phoenix Suns win.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see them. Booker's a good young player. They got it's kind of an exciting team that can score a lot of points, and it would be good for the league if somebody else won. And I don't think it's going to come from the East. I think it's going to come from the West this year. You never know. I don't know that the 76ers can beat the Heat. I don't know that all these things. You got Milwaukee and the Celtics, and quite honestly, none of these teams look like consistent championship winners. It's a toss up, and it's probably good for the publicity angle of things. But
do I got like half a minute to make one comment?
Sure.
About the Tribe or the Guardians?
Yeah, actually, it's about the Guardians.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were on. Well, everybody was on free MLB TV this week, so all the games were live. They were all free. So I actually watched like a couple of the Toronto games, the ones that the Indians actually won.
Hey.
And one thing that I noticed was that there were very, very few. Well, there wasn't a lot of people in the crowd, but there was very few camera shots of people in the crowd.
Right.
And it's like and when they show the players, they're like fading out the crowd in the background. There's very, very few shots where you can up close and identify fans. And I'm just wondering whether that's a purpose to avoid showing up any like Chief Wahoo or Indians or people wearing any gear.
I think it's embarrassment. There are 9,000 fans watching these games. This is just exactly what it was like when I was a kid in the late 70s.
Yeah, you and me, yeah. You know what I used to do as a kid? This was during the Oscar Gamble era and Boot Pile era. Before the game, like when the gates would open, there'd be hardly anybody there, and batting practice would be going on. All the people would be down in the left field stands by the foul pole or the right field stands by the foul pole. My brother and I, we used to go in the upper deck by the foul pole. We got balls hit in batting practice by Boot Powell and Oscar Gamble because they could hit it up there. And we were like the only people up there getting there. We didn't have to fight anybody for them. So that gives you an idea of how few people went to those games.
I can tell you when I was 19 years old and I actually got free tickets. I was working at WINW 1520 AM in Canton, Ohio as a disc jockey when I was 19 years old.
Yep.
And I was able to get press pass
seats. Yeah.
Press pass. And we had nothing to do. WHBC 1480 AM in Canton, they were the ones who were broadcasting locally the Indians games. Yeah. But still, they would turn no press down because they just wanted to put fucking bodies in the place because it was embarrassing. I'd get there and I'd bring a date there. A couple of buddies would go up. We'd go in and we'd look at where our general admission seat would allow us to sit. But it didn't matter because we would just kind of sneak in. And it got to the point where the people who were the ushers
knew who you were and just let you in.
Yeah. These ushers were less conspicuous than the other usher with the Cavaliers organization when he was with it. Okay?
Dear.
We're talking about invisible ushers. Yeah. So we would just walk right into these nice box seats. Right. And but they would, it was horrible. There would be like 8,000 fans. And the last game, the one game that was cold, they only had 9,000 fans in the stands.
Yeah, I know.
So I think that's why they're not showing the crowd. I think Bally Sports Ohio is like, this doesn't really look good. And the Dolans have told us not to do the craning shots. Yeah.
The great thing about it was that for some reason, and I don't want to wish ill on anybody, but apparently Matt Underwood was under the weather or something during the week.
Yeah, COVID.
He had COVID. I didn't know he had COVID, but I was hearing Al Pulaski, and I go, "Fuck, I'm going to listen to this." Underwood's not on, so I don't want to like.
What a bonus!
What a bonus! Yeah, what happened to Underwood? I don't care. I'm going to listen to this.
Well, he got over the COVID so fast because the COVID couldn't stand being inside of him.
Yeah, exactly.
COVID
had to leave. Yeah.
But and Al, Al's like, well, it's great to be here. It's that I'm an announcer voice, and it's like
he had the great radio announcer voice. I go, I'm loving this. No Underwood.
I'm Al Pulaski, and I should be here, and it shouldn't be the other guy. I hope COVID takes his life. Hey, Rick, what's going on with you?
Yeah, swapped any wives lately?
No, but they actually said due to COVID protocol.
Sorry to hear that.
But he's back. He's back.
Yeah, I got back yesterday, so I was listening. To that. But Stephen Kwan, and what a revelation! And Owen Miller.
Owen Miller's another one. Yeah, I mean, both of these guys hit 300 in the minor leagues, and they're hitting now. Owen Miller is pulling the ball. He's showing a little bit of power. He did have a year in the minors where he had 13 dingers. So he's getting around on the ball. And he's making contact more frequently, striking out less frequently. Kwan gets his bat on everything.
Yep.
And now finally Reyes has started to put the ball in play after striking out like 70% of the times he came to home plate.
I think he spent a whole week not getting a hit, but I think it's all down to the fact that I don't get NBA audio pass or TV pass. The fact that I stopped paying for it, that's why they're now.
I paid $100 for the MLB. Just the Guardians only.
Guardians only. Yeah.
Okay. And so I can keep up with what they're doing. It hasn't been that bad. I got to say though, the Bieber looked bad. And I'm a little concerned, 3 innings, eight runs. That's not good stuff. But
I turned that one off.
Yeah, but they're winning some close games and they're doing some decent things. And I'll tell you, other guy who's a surprise to me is Jimenez.
Yeah, Jimenez looks like a proper star, man. He does.
Well, he's fielding. He's playing. He made some great plays at second base the other day, and he's getting his bat on the ball. And going opposite field and beating shifts and doing the things that they have to do. Bobby Bradley's gone forever, and I think that's probably for the best.
He was no better than Milton Bradley.
Yeah. Owen Miller doesn't really play much defense. He's not much of a first baseman, but that's kind of where that is settled. And we'll see. We'll see if who's the outfielder? I'm sorry. The guy who hit about 270. Not Mercado. The guy who played shortstop and they wanted him to play left field.
Rosario, who's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, but we'll see if he can start hitting because he's dwindling at the Mendoza line right now. He hasn't gotten his bat going. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're not going to get any offensive production from behind the plate. That we do know. So we'll see. But it's been better than I thought it would be. Okay.
Yeah.
But
so
fans aren't. But there's no reason for fans to get excited except for Jose Ramirez. I mean, who's having a fabulous year. He's got 30 runs batted in already. Leads the league. But that's it. It's hard to get excited about this.
Wow. There you go.
All right, let's get out of here.
We'll get out of here. Bonus Moohead.
Thanks, Bronk. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Tony. And thanks to Derek. If you're catching this on the flip side, Derek was in the first 45 minutes of the program. And we'll see you again end of the week. It comes back on Friday, and we'll be talking more Northeast Ohio sports. Until next time, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.